The following program is rated T for teen for the use of tools and materials that can be harmful to unsupervised usage. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everyone, Mr. Waugh here for Mr. Waugh Media, and yes, that is my actual name. And for today's episode, we're going to work on a marble temple. Welcome back to the show, everyone, and as I mentioned, we're going to do some marble temples today. Now, in one of the previous episodes, I said I want to do some fortress walls, but the thing was, it was pretty much identical to what I did in the Armageddon episode, maybe with a couple extra steps, so to avoid redundancy, I decided to scrap the project, and my heart really just wasn't in it. So instead, I wanted to do something that I've had on my bucket list for a while. I wanted to do some Greek and Roman architecture with some beautiful marble columns and that kind of stuff. But it's a really hard one to pull off, especially with the different paints and the textures, so I thought outside the box and cheated. I got us some wallpaper instead.
Alright, the very first thing we're going to start working on is the foundation of the temple itself. For this one, we're going to take a 1/2 inch thick piece of styrofoam, and I'm going to start cutting it out. It's going to be 11.5 in length and 6 inches in width. Once I have that, I'm going to start working on sort of the foundation of the building. This is going to be 1 inch in. Think of it as kind of a sidewalk that goes around the perimeter of the building. Now, obviously, if you're working with a larger structure or even a smaller one, you don't have to follow these steps exactly. For me, this is sort of the template that I came up with my prototype. I was really happy with the original draft, so I'm going to stick with it. Now, in hindsight, you can see here that I'm using a red pen. Technically, you don't have to do this. I'm just doing it so you have a clean visual for the screen. In hindsight, though, I kind of realized that if they don't line up perfect, if your building doesn't quite meet the exact edge, sometimes a little bit of the red can show through, so I had to do a little bit of hiding and all that kind of stuff. But again, we live, we learn, we build. Now, the next segment here that I'm going to work on is the staircase in the front. So what I'm doing is 1 inch in from the sidewalk, so technically it's 2 inches in from the edge of the board, and it's going to be 2 inches deep. I figure that's going to be a pretty decent little staircase for most 28mm, which is the scale that I'm building with, just so you guys know. And yeah, it doesn't have to be anything too complicated here. Again, if you want something more elaborate, you want something that goes a little bit deeper, by all means, knock yourself out. And as you can see here, I've pulled out my trusty knife, and make sure your blade is always sharp. And don't just do one long pull when you're doing this as well. That has a tendency to actually tear the styrofoam. Instead, I'm making slow, multiple cuts. That way I have a nice even. And even then, it's not always perfect. There's going to be a little bit of debris you can see there in the corner. But it is cleaner than just tearing through it like an animal. Alright, now that I have that part, I'm going to work on the stairs themselves. This is going to be a very tricky step, and this is not exactly the easiest way of doing it. Be very careful, okay? The idea is I'm cutting in from the top, and I'm cutting in from the bottom to meet me right in the middle there, and I'm hacking out these thin strips. Be super careful. I cannot stress that point enough. I'm going to make sure each of these layers, I don't even know, like maybe they're a couple millimeters in height. You can get an idea here once I put it towards the camera. You get something like that. It looks great, but again, please be careful. You see it fits right back in there. Looks fantastic. Alright, now it's time to start working on the walls of the structure. And obviously, we'll probably need 4 of those, because that's the average for most buildings. The more you know, right folks? Alright, the side walls here are going to be 6 inches in length and 3 inches in height. And that'll be the 2 side pieces. As for the front and the back, the other 2 walls that we need to complete our set of 4, in case you're keeping track at home, those are going to be 3 inches in height to match the others, and they're only going to be 3.5. Remember that this stuff that I'm working with is a 1/4 inch, so it does add up, and that's something you do need to take into account when you're making all of your calculations. So with these 2 sandwiched between the wall pieces, that's going to give me a solid 4 inches in width of the building. Alright, now it's time to start assembling this behemoth. I'm going to use a hot glue gun here. You can use white glue if you like. It'll give you more time to sort of manipulate the pieces, but let's face it, this isn't an overly complicated structure, so I don't think you have anything to fear working with the hot glue gun. Just make sure it's in there, and for the love of God, do not glue yourself to the building. Because that sucks. It's hot. That's a warning for Owen. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's start working on the roof of the structure. This thing's just coming together here. So for this one, obviously, as I mentioned before, with the sandwiching in between them, it equals 4 inches in width. And the length of this thing, let me actually just pull up my ruler here, that is 9.5. It's just going to fit on there like that. We'll glue it down. Not an overly complicated build so far. That's going to come later on, trust me. We'll just sandwich that on top there, and voila. That is the basis of our temple. Not very complicated. It's just going to fit right on there. All right, we're done. Congratulations, everyone. GG. GG. All right, now let's play with some untested and untried technology. This is the wallpaper that I found at the dollar store. It's about $3 a roll, and this stuff was really a game changer when it came to doing this marble effect. Trust me, I struggled for a while to get the paint to do the patterns and everything. And as soon as I saw this stuff just walking by, I was like, boom, jackpot. That's what I need. So what I'm going to do is start marking this out. We're going to do the sidewalk first, so it'll be 1 inch in thickness. And the roll, I believe, is 18 inches in length. So that's more than enough to cover the entire length. I remember working with about 11.5 for the temple itself. And this stuff is a little bit tricky to work with, don't get me wrong, because you got to peel it off. And though it is forgiving, you can peel it back off and stick it back down. The adhesive is pretty decent. There are some places, if you don't have a smooth enough surface, it doesn't stick to it perfectly. So I did have to dabble a little bit of glue here and there. But for the most part, my prototype, it's been about a month and it's still sticking to it fine. Just make sure you go right to the edge. It's not hanging over, because otherwise, as you're handling it, I might start peeling. So I'm taking my blade here. You can see I'm sandwiching it between the two. This is one of the trickier parts, and a lot of footage got cut out because it's just me struggling with this stupid thing. But once you have it down, you just place it. See, I need to make a little bit of a correction here, so I'm going in with my blade, just peeling it up just a little bit. Like I said, it's pretty forgiving. And I'm just going to lay it down here. Boom. It's nice and flush with the edge. Boom. There we go. Awesome. Our first piece is down. Now I'm going to work on the back part of the alley. Same thing. I'm just going to peel it back with the blade. Be careful. Obviously, if you're handling these kind of tools, be careful, everyone. And there we go. That looks pretty flush with the other piece. It's flush with the edge. And I'm just going to chop off the excess with the scissors here. And that's basically what we're going to do. We're going to go all around the perimeter here. And the next part is the edge itself. So I need a piece that is a 1/2 inch in thickness. This is one of the segments where it took me about 5 minutes to get this damn thing on there. So a lot of stuff got cut out. But you can see it's flush with the other pieces. And it's looking really cool. I can't stress this enough. This was such a time saver. You can paint marble effects, and it looks great if you know what you're doing. But I'm going to be honest, it's a tricky one for me to pull off to be consistent. And if I'm doing this huge table that I got planned in my brain, this is going to save me so much time and effort. So I'm just going to keep going here, working the side of the parameter. I got the other two down. I'll do the third guy here. Just fast forward a little bit. And now I'm going to start working on the front entrance. So that's going to include the staircase, the front of the temple, and all that. So this piece here, that should be, let me just pull up the ruler quick. That is 4.5. That's going to go to the edge of the building. And it's going to be 4 inches wide. Now, I'm pretty satisfied with here. I'm eyeballing it. It looks pretty clean to me. So now I got to go in there and I got to make that cut. So that's going to be 1 inch in on both sides. It'll be 2 inches in length, and that'll take care of the whole staircases. And I'm going to save that piece because I can just slap that on the staircase and do a little bit of Frankensteining with it. It's not too bad. Now with this stuff, be careful. Make sure your blade is really clean and use the ruler. You can see here I tried just quickly cutting it. Now I had a little bit of a tear, so I'm going back in with the ruler. Just don't be afraid to take your time with this one, all right? I got rid of the excess, but you just don't need that kind of hassle. So for this one again, I'm just going to work in here. I don't think I struggled too long on this one. It's just a few seconds. Just peeling it off there. Yeah, this stuff is a little bit annoying to work with in that regard, but you wing it, you just work with it. And yeah, like that. That looks really clean. It's flush with the other side. And I'll just pat that down good. Save that little fragment. Now I got to go in on the front piece here. And so that's going to be, again, a 1/2 inch in height. And basically what I'm going to do is have it go around the front, and it's going to go into where the staircase is going to be, since it's going to show a bit of the side there. In hindsight, I probably should have kept going and do the back of the stairs as well, because there's going to be a little bit of a gap, but I patched that one in a little bit later, you'll see. So for this one, I think it's just like 2 inches in, 2 inches long, so it's 4 inches in total by 1/2 inch. That should work fine. And just take your time on that one, stick it in there good. I went a little too far, so I'm just going to take my blade. I'll just hack off whatever's left over. No big deal. This stuff is pretty forgiving. I think it's maybe the consistency of maybe paper or like a little bit of a thicker cereal box almost. So it's pretty forgiving to work with a blade and scissors, so you won't have too much trouble. Again, just make sure it's clean. All right, now I'm going to go in there. I'm going to peel off the segment that I chopped out for the staircases. And this one's going to be pretty easy. You just put it down. If I can just peel the damn thing off. It is a running theme with this video. All right, so I'm going to put that down on the top there. And then sort of just fold it in, fold it down, fold it in, fold it down. And voila, that was pretty easy for the staircase. I have a little bit missing at the bottom there, since obviously I had to do a little folding so it doesn't go quite all the way. So I'm just going to chop myself a little piece off here, wrap it around the edge. And the beauty of this pattern is it's pretty, how do I explain it? It's the roll itself is just one continuing image. It doesn't like stop like a brick would and then it continues the pattern on. So it blends together really nicely. One segment from the bottom looks almost identical to what you're working with at the top. So you can patch this stuff in, and unless you're looking for it, it's actually pretty forgiving. So, as you can see here, I'm slotting it in, and I realize at this point my mistake that I didn't finish the very back of the staircase. So I'm going in there quickly with this little 4-inch patch. I'll just slap that in there, and at this point, looking at it, eyeballing it, looks pretty good. Okay, here we go. That looks really nice as the foundation of our temple. Now it's time to start working on the temple walls. So my first segment here, that is going to be the 6 inches, and it's going to be 3 1/4, because remember, I have to take into account the thickness of the roof now. So I'm going to just peel this off. I'll slap these down. I think I'm going to cut out a few segments because I struggled to get some of these pieces to peel out. This was definitely something you can't just do on the fly on the camera. A lot went into this, but look at that. It's such a cool effect. All right, now I need some columns at the front of this temple. So basically what I have is some plastic rolls that I get from my debit machine at work. So thanks to all the staff for saving these for me. This is what I use them for. And I cut out a little segment here. I think it's 3 inches in height and probably about 4 inches in length. And I'm just going to attach it to one part of the column here and then just slowly wrap it around. This is such a simple and quick look. I know it's a little bit hard to see with a bit of the glare here, but this was really quick and easy, and I love it. So I got 4 of these guys going. That'll be for the front. Now for the roof itself, for the most part, it is going to be covered by a tiled roof, but some of it is going to be showing underneath. So I need to at least have it go in about a 1/4 of an inch, I say, just to be safe. And that's just to mark it off in case anything's showing underneath it. You could have the roof go over if you wanted to, but for this design, I was following some old Roman and Greek architecture, and I kind of liked the way it looked. So I was trying to follow it as closely as I could. So I do need to put this down just to cover up any imperfections. But again, dealer's choice as always with how you want the architecture to look. Now I need a thin strip along the edge there. This is about, what is that? Once again, pulling out the ruler here so I can give you something precise. 3 1/2 inches to the edge of the, what would that be? The hangover, I guess, where the columns are going to go. So 3 1/2 inches in length, and it's going to be about a 1/2 inch in width. Just wrap it around there, and we're done. All right, now I'm just going to eyeball it quickly here. The foundation's pretty flush with the building, so good job, Adam. You didn't screw that one up. And the columns here, I'm just going to eyeball it. Looks good. Now it's time to commit. Put the hot glue gun into place there. Make sure it stays on. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And from here, we're just going to put a massive amount of glue on everything, plop it down, and we're done with the main structure. All right, that looks pretty awesome. I'm really digging this. All right, now we got to work on the roof itself. So for this one, I need a front piece, a back piece, and then we're going to do all the tiles. For the front and the back, this is going to be 4 inches in width, and I need this to be 1.5 inches in height. Now, as usual, if you want to make it a little bit more steep, go ahead, you can make it a little bit taller, but for me, I found this was a nice happy medium. So what I'm going to do is triangulate to the very center here, chop off these pieces, and that's basically it. Not overly complicated for these. I need 2 of them, obviously, front and back. And then I'm going to take a piece of the wallpaper, and this one's going to be about 4 inches in width, and I'm going to take about 3.5 in height. That should give me enough to wrap it around both sides. I'll just make sure I have all my stuff nice and clean here, and we'll go from there. We'll peel this off, again, my favorite part of doing this whole thing, and what I'm going to do is lay it down at the very bottom there, covers it up nicely. Then I'm going to flip it and chop right down the middle. Then I'm going to fold this segment over, peel this one back so I can have access and chop this excess off. And then what I'll do is fold the other side over. This side doesn't need to be as pretty because it's going to be covered up by about 90% of the tiles on the roof, but you still need a little bit of it showing just in case, so I'm being as clean as I can just to be professional. All right, going to chop off the excess here. I'll need 2 of these bad boys. And I'll take a little bit of glue, give it a nice little dab on the top there, and we're just going to mount it on the front and the back. Now it's time for the final segment, and that is going to be the roof tiles. This one is going to be 9 inches in length, and it's going to be 4 inches in width. So what I'm going to do is go down the very middle here at the 2-inch mark and gently score it halfway through. Then I can bend it and have a nice triangulated rooftop. Then what I'm going to do is take my wavy cardboard and take them in strips of 1 inch in width. And basically all we got to do is hot glue gun them down and bolt it firmly into place. And we're going to do this for both sides. In total, for a rooftop of this size, I need 6 strips in total. Obviously, if you're working with something bigger or something smaller, your numbers will vary, but for most standard buildings, I found you only need about 3 or 4 strips. All right, for the next layer, basically what I do is put it up, I want to say about 1/4 of an inch, and then I put a little layer of the glue on the previous tile, so I'm just going to stack them up there. Rinse and repeat on the other side. We're just going to mirror it on both. And we'll just go from there. And you can see mine are going over the edge. I wasn't too crazy about it. I can just chop them off as I go. And I'm not too picky about that kind of thing. All right, now I'm going to do the final layer. So this one's going to go all the way to the top on this side, and I'll put a generous glob on the previous existing tiles. I'm going to lay this guy down. Now what I'm going to do is chop everything else off here for doing the final layer. So I'm just going to clean up this. Man, this is actually taking a little while to trim all this off on the camera. I'm sitting here in the editor chair and I'm trying to figure out what I could say to fill these 10 seconds. I don't know. Trim it up like you trim up your chest hairs. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about, right? Ladies have chest hair, right? I don't know. I've never actually seen a woman before, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's not talk about my love life. All right, I'm going to take a generous glob of glue here on the remaining tile piece, and then I'll put one along the edge of the other tile so that they meet and we'll have a perfect roof. Perfect. All right, we're going to trim that off there. And like my ex-wife was famous for saying as she stormed out of our apartment building, we're finished. Well, at least for this step anyways. Now it's time to actually paint the damn thing. And this is the only thing that we actually have to paint here. What I've done is do a pretty generous coat of black primer across the entire surface. And now we're going to go in there with a nice rich navy blue color. And we're going to pack it in there pretty deep into all the nooks and crannies. I'm going to do a bit of a time lapse since it is such a large surface. But trust me, I do this all by myself. Mostly because I'm too poor to actually hire anyone to help me. But moving on, let's move on to the next layer. It's ultramarine blue, and we're just going to dry brush that across everything. This is going to be a pretty generous coating. It's not as dry as the final layer is going to be, but you're still going to see the royal navy blue in all the nooks and crannies. And I'll do a little bit of a flip it to the camera here so you can see it a little bit better there. And that's looking really nice so far. Next, I'm going to do an icy blue color. This will be the final coat. You can keep going if you want to go a little bit further. But again, nice dry brushing. This one is going to be a little bit lighter than the ultramarine blue is, but still generous enough that it does pop up. And there we go. That looks pretty slick to me. I'm pretty satisfied with that. And what we got to do is just use some glue, bolt it down into place, and voila, we are finished our beautiful marble temple. I'm really happy with how this whole thing came together, and this just looks fantastic. I know I say that with all my builds, but this has been a bit of a passion project. I've wanted to do a marble city for quite some time, but trying to get the pattern to be consistent on this large of a scale, and trust me, I'm thinking like 4 by 6 feet table, that's going to be very hard to keep it consistent. And this stuff, just randomly stumbling across it in the dollar store, this was a godsend because the pattern is always going to be consistent. So I've got some crazy ideas of what I want to do in the future. Maybe it's something that I'll film at a later date, but for now, I'm really happy with this little temple. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll catch you on the next one. Well, that has been today's episode. I really hope you guys liked it and maybe found some useful information in there. If you did, make sure that you hit the like, the share, and subscribe button down below, and please pass this around to all your friends. We're really trying to build the channel from the ground up. If there's anything that you want me to build in an upcoming episode, let me know in the comments down below, and maybe we'll be able to build it for you in the future. On that note, I've been Mr. Waugh from Mr. Waugh Media, signing off.